And tonight, a crisis in the classroom special as we look at staffing shortages facing schools, districts working hard to hire open positions, from bus drivers to school nurses ahead of the fall. Good evening and welcome to a special Crisis in the Classroom edition of the CBS 6 News at 7 o'clock. I'm JT Fetch. For years, we've been highlighting the challenges facing our local schools. Many of these challenges have been brought to our attention by you, our viewers. One issue hanging over many parents tonight, making sure they have quality childcare lined up for their kids.
Childcare has always sort of been in their own little crisis. Obviously, it worsened since the pandemic. Our early childcare programs tend to get more staff than our school age because they're full-time. They have all of our full-time benefits, and it's more of a career than it is just a part-time gig that fits in their life. The COVID obviously impacted that as well, and we've struggled a little bit. If we look at our school-age world into the camp world, we're looking at mostly part-time folks, high school, college students, and so that has always ebbed and flowed. And usually I would say by October, we felt like we were hitting the ground running and we were all fully staffed. I think what the pandemic did was a couple things. I think this is hard work. So I think there have been a lot of other job opportunities that may not be as hard as work as this is, and they get a little bit more pay there. So I think they kind of got used to making 20 bucks an hour doing whatever, and we're just not there. If we do that to pay our staff that the only place that can fall back on is parent fees, and we're very cognizant of that, and we want to be mindful of the communities we're serving.
We have been checking in with you guys periodically because we've seen the calls out in years past, especially on the child care front, looking for staff, saying it's a crisis, how it could impact school districts as we head into the fall. I think it was a dozen or so that would be impacted by this. How are we looking right now towards the fall in terms of the child care staffing?
So we don't really truly start recruiting, to be fair with you, until July, mid-July. But what we learned year one after COVID to change our model a little bit, which is a hardship on families to an extent, but we were able to open all of our programs last year on time. So we take off 1 week with smaller numbers. So as we got staff in place, then we would add the children in. Again, it's not ideal for working families, but it's better than saying, oh, we can't open until mid-October. So we've been able to do that. This will be our second year doing that, and I feel confident. Our numbers are good. Parents still need childcare, but we are more cognizant of how we get them into our programs to ensure that we have the staff in place to run a safe program.
So what's the message out there to not only people who are maybe thinking about this as a job, but the message to parents, again, who are trying to plan ahead and plan around family vacations and line up childcare and make sure that they're all set for the fall? What's your message to them? Because, one of the other things we saw during COVID is, particularly with women, they were dropping out of the workforce because they couldn't line up that childcare.
Right. And we are trying to eliminate that. I can't stand here and say it's perfect yet, because it is not. But what we do try to work in partnership with the families. And I think my message to families is, please know that we have a committed, dedicated team, from our billing department to our frontline staff to our wellness membership, that wants to be a partner with you and to take care of your child and or your family, depending upon the situation. I would say to a potential staff member, the YMCA is a great organization to work with and for. I've been here many years in different iterations and as a volunteer, and I can say we are committed to making a difference in children's lives, in families' lives, and we do that in a variety of ways. In particular, in my field, we do that through our experiences with children, being that caring, empathetic adult for them at the end of the day, which some may not view that as important, but that's very important. We're kind of we're the first place that they go after their school day. And I think we do a great job at training our staff up, getting them to understand the needs of children, and eventually just to be a great partner in the community.
More confident this year than in the past when there were some concerns about staffing, to sum it up?
Confident. I'm always cautiously confident that we are going to be able to do what we're going to do, because we always do. And so I would say we started recruiting in a couple weeks. We've got some behind the scenes recruitment avenues that we're pursuing that we hope will elevate our exposure and our ability to recruit folks. At the end of the day, if you're coming to work at the YMCA, you're coming here because you're following a passion. You're following your heart. You're following maybe your schedule, but it's usually around the passion, mission, and their heart. So I just hope that folks can will look at the work that we do here and want to be a part of it.
The wheels on the bus go round and round, but it seems lately it's been harder and harder to get those wheels rolling. It seems like no matter where you go in the capital region, you'll see signs and banners advertising school districts hiring bus drivers. But how difficult is it to operate these vehicles? What does the job entail? We went to the Niskayuna Central School District to give us some insight. Looking back, pre-COVID, could you just take me through how it has changed from that time to where we are now?
It's changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know, they did change the runs a lot during COVID, meaning we needed more buses and more drivers because there was less students available to, or less students allowed to be on a bus at a time. But the shortage has been going on at the same time, which I believe even started before COVID. You know, we still had, you know, our mechanics and auxiliary people in the office driving as many people as we could, driving the school bus. Now it's gotten worse. COVID made it a lot worse. There used to be, at least then, there was days when there was drivers sitting in the room waiting to go up for duty, you know, and they'd be there just in case we needed them to move buses, you know, do extra work at night. But for a while, it was nothing but all hands on deck doing it, you know, condensing runs, doing, you know, 2 runs, multiple runs at the same time with one bus. So things like that have changed a lot.
There are things that were kind of problems before COVID, and then COVID accelerated that, and I'm sure
it did. And of course, when somebody has COVID, then now all of a sudden you've got, you know, 1 driver out, then it's 5, you know, because you can't be in for until you're 4 days clear from the COVID. So that didn't help things either. You know, thank goodness a lot of drivers, at least in our district, their parents drove the students in, because we had runs for days that we didn't even fill the bus run. There was no run that day. So that was amazing. That's the first time in history type of thing where I'm sorry, but there will be no school bus this morning. Right. We just didn't have the drivers. This year we have built up quite a bit of staff. We still have combo runs every once in a while, but now our mechanics are no longer driving. But again, I worry as we start the next year, who's not going to be coming in. We have a couple people I know retiring. Are we getting enough people to fill those spaces?
Yeah.
So it's always a constant, you know, movement here.
Yeah, you said before that you're kind of a little nervous this year. You know, people think the summer, oh, it's, you know, it's months, but it's got to be, you know, a tight timeline for you guys.
It's such a tight timeline, especially for training. You know, we start our training, we have 2 months. There's a lot that has to be completed in those 2 months.
Yeah.
You know, for a driver. You know, it's not, you know, you get your license, okay, go ahead. It's not one of those things when you're a school bus driver. You know, there's a lot more requirements the state, DMV, DOT requires of you than just a normal, you know, CDTA driver or another type of driver. So we have state courses they have to go through. And I mean, even we starting them out before they even get their permits, so we have to have permit classes now. Because one of our hardest things, challenges that we have for our trainers is actually passing the permit for the school bus.
Right, because there's no shortage of trying to get people interested. We see the sign on the bus out by the road. We see the sign in front of Niskayuna High School. We saw the yard signs in your office that are going out there. So yeah. It's a real effort that I've noticed, especially in the past couple of years, to try to recruit people.
It is an effort, you know, and we put it out there. Like I said, we attend job fairs, we have open houses, you know, we've tried a variety of anything we could to try to get people to come in. Yeah. You know, and it's been difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure. What's your message to somebody who might be thinking about this? You know, pretty good hours. You know, I know the pay's been boosted for drivers in general in the past few years since COVID to attract people. What's your message to someone who may be a little bit intimidated about trying to drive this big thing?
It's not as hard. I can do it. This woman here could do it. You know, anyone could do this. Yeah. You know, they've even made it, like, I remember when I first started driving, if you were a little bit too short, on the short side, they'd have to really adjust seats, you know, remove the seats and actually adjust it. Now we have foot pedals that move towards you. We have all sorts of things, so anyone can drive this bus.
Our Crisis in the Classroom special continues next on the CBS 6 News at 7. School nurses are in high demand. Why experts say their job goes way beyond treating cuts and checking for fevers. Summer vacation is here and classrooms like this one have gone quiet. But schools now face an issue many of our local hospitals know well, a nursing shortage. It's an issue gripping districts nationwide.
And the outcomes are significantly better when you have that school nurse in place.
Jennifer Walsh is an assistant professor with George Washington University School of Nursing. In an interview with our partners at the National Desk, she pointed out less than 40% of schools in the U.S. have a full-time registered nurse. That stunning stat can lead to problems.
It increases absenteeism. It increases emergency services being needed, emergency room visits. It's a real cost deterrent when we don't have those registered nurses.
Professor Walsh says, like we've seen in our capital region hospitals that have struggled to maintain staffing levels, compensation is usually a factor.
The pay as well is not equitable when it comes to school nursing compared to other types of nursing. So it's difficult to recruit. It's difficult to have those positions open up. And it's difficult to have those school districts see the value in school nurses.
Federal pandemic relief funding allowed districts to hire nurses, but time is ticking. Schools have until the end of September to allocate that money. It's an important deadline, especially since school nurses deal with so much more than stomach aches and cuts.
We're seeing a huge issue with mental health. And school nurses spend up to about 30% of their workday, their workload, dealing with mental health issues.
And if you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health, help is available. You can call or text the number 988. That is the suicide hotline. Students' mental health has been in the spotlight ever since the pandemic, and now there's a new look at the student-to-school counselor ratio. One group found the U.S. average is 385 students to every one counselor. Experts say that ratio should be 250 to 1.
When it comes to school counselors, Angie Hickman from the American School Counselor Association says there is clear strength in numbers, and having a good counselor-to-student ratio has wide-ranging impacts.
Smaller student to school counselor ratios, they'll increase performance on standardized tests like the ACT, they improve student attendance, GPA, graduation rates, even decreases in the frequency of disciplinary action, all of those things, because you've got school counselors teaching students how to get along with others, doing classroom lessons, doing group counseling on the things that they need to be successful in school. If you don't have mental wellness, you can't be successful in school. So that's why you can really see that direct correlation from having access to a school counselor to having improved student outcomes. We even have data that shows that a lower ratio even means that students are more likely to speak to a school counselor about college going and post-secondary plans. We have data that that's more likely to happen. So, when we talk about school counselor ratios, it's not just saying, it'd be nice for everybody to have access to a school counselor. It's good for kids. Well, it actually helps schools meet their goals for students. It helps schools be able to say, hey, we've got this many students graduating. We've improved our graduation rate. We have students, a certain number of students, whatever their goal is, going to trade or technical school or a four-year college. So school counseling really ties back into all the things that superintendents and principals and administrators want for their schools too.
Hickman says generally in the U.S., counselor-to-student ratios in elementary schools are higher than in high schools because older students need more of the help people in this key position can provide. That's why that number of 250 students to every one counselor is the goal. Hickman says compared to other states, New York is actually in pretty good shape, but there's always room for improvement.
We'd like to see more in elementary, overall, obviously. We still have schools that are sharing a school counselor. So you've got schools that don't have a school counselor in the school every day. And that means if a student's in crisis, where's the school counselor? Over at another school, because the system hasn't invested in ensuring every student has access. There are a lot of other factors that come into play. So while 250 is optimal, And that's what we can say from our research, that's optimal. There are other socioeconomic factors and grade level factors that have to be considered as well. Some schools may have higher needs than others. But really, it's encouraging, I think, to see that New York has improved so much. It means that the department is investing in students and recognizing that we do have a national crisis. So we need the school counselors, both for those mental health needs to be there for students in crisis and just the ongoing mindsets and behaviors that they can teach in terms of managing stress and anxiety and all the things that kids need to have in their heads when they go to school every day so they can actually be successful when they get there.
Still ahead, part 2 of our look at school bus driver shortages as we speak to a newly hired employee at a local school district. Welcome back to our Crisis in the Classroom special. Now, earlier we heard about the challenges school districts have faced in recruiting school bus drivers. So what does the training and the job actually entail? We spoke with a recent hire.
Well, I'm a local, and after 35 years in corporate America, I wasn't ready to sit in a rocking chair. I needed something to do. And like you said, I've seen the signs, and I thought, why not do something totally different? So I called and in very short order talked to Cindy, and she encouraged me to come in and speak to her directly. She was engaging, she was encouraging, and I'll be honest, I had doubts whether I could drive a big school bus. Been driving most of my life, but cars, pickup trucks, not big buses. So she made me feel more comfortable. And within short order, I started training. And one thing I have to say, the trainers here are amazing. They are seasoned, they are encouraging, they're patient, and as much training as you need to be comfortable to drive the bus, that's what they provide. And my original date for my road test, I was not feeling quite confident. They willingly pushed it out a couple of weeks. I passed on my first try.
Talk to me about like what you had to do on the road test.
Well, it was 3 segments. So one thing that surprised me about driving a bus is the extent of the pre-trip. And I think it's fantastic. So before you even drive a bus, you check under the engine, make sure that everything is as it should be. There's a whole list of things that you make sure are safe. You check the outside of the bus, underneath the bus, and inside the interior of the bus to make sure that everything is in working order, nothing needs a repair, and if it does, the mechanics are standing by. And then, of course, if a bus for any reason doesn't seem safe, they issue you a different bus right away. So that's first. When you go to the road test, they make sure that you are very familiar with the pre-trip and all of the steps that need to be completed. So that's number 1. Number 2 is maneuvers. So believe it or not, there's times when you have to parallel park a bus. So again, extensive training by the great trainers here. I was well prepared for that. Forward and back, left offset, parallel parking, very confident, got it on the first try.
Nice.
That was segment 2. Segment 3, you go out on the road and actually drive the bus on the road, make sure that you can do the corners, make sure that you know how to drop off and pick up a student safely. There's many steps for that. And again, I was well prepared, felt very confident, and passed on the first try.
How was that component of the training and making sure that the students get on and off safely?
There was a big emphasis on that. And they explained that when you're loading or offloading a student, that needs to be your focus. And they were very clear about the steps that we go through to make sure that the student is safe. For instance, the student doesn't cross until you're able to check everything. Then you give them the signal, one hand on over the horn, and the students are trained to know that if the horn goes off, they go back. So, and we practice that over and over again. I can't speak for other districts, but Niskayuna, they know what they're doing. And if you come and you follow the directions and you read the material, anyone can do this. because of the level of training that they provide. And I have to say too, it's a very diverse group of drivers here. Every single one of them are supportive. If I made a mistake, I could ask for help, and every one of them were there to support me. They would greet you in the morning and how's it going, and very supportive. So not only the staff is there, but all of the other drivers. It's like a big family.
Staffing shortages. When it comes to our schools, unfortunately, there has been no shortage of them. Like so many of the problems we've highlighted over the years in our Crisis in the Classroom reporting, the issue has only been made worse by the pandemic. And one of the key positions is not immune to that. We're talking, of course, about teachers. Districts have had to deal with retirements. They've had to deal with burnout. And some feeling there's an overall lack of respect for the teaching profession. School districts are already working to fill openings in time for the fall, but will they be able to do it? It's a question we'll be asking throughout the summer, and you can count on CBS 6 to follow it all. I'm JT Fetch. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.